This slide and code in MySQL4 underscore 33 underscore conditional if then else SQL demonstrates the use of conditional statements, both the basic and nested versions. It also shows how to use multiple input parameters, essentially the data this procedure needs to do its work. Once the procedure is created successfully, it is then called with the specific values of these input parameters using the call statement. So now we'll switch to the procedure right here, and we'll start by looking at the top and creating these input parameters with a keyword in, the name of the parameter, emp hire date of date data type. I'm going to go to the next line. Another input parameter, emp rank, which is char1, c for clerk, and then for manager, and the last input parameter emp salary, which is double, again instead of decimal, just for expediency. All right, you'll see that some of the variables were already declared, starting with a cutoff date that's going to be used with the employee hire date to determine whether the employee is a recent, new, or a seasoned employee. Then we'll have two levels of salaries, low and high, 25 and 60 grand, which is going to be used together with a salary parameter to determine whether the employee is in the low, middle, or high salary categories. And finally, there's a rank that's going to determine the employee status as as a clerk or manager. All that information is going to be sort of collated using concat function into employee status string variable sufficiently, sufficient length. Okay, so we set the cutoff date to be some relatively random date in January of 2020. And what we'll first do is use the basic version of the if then else procedure to check if emp hire date is after the cutoff date. If it is, then what we'll do, we'll set emp status, initialize the emp status to in double quotes, don't forget to end the statement, as a new employee. Okay, else, and then end if with a semicolon, else the status is going to be seasoned employee. Okay, so save, scroll down a little bit. Next, we use again a basic if then else to check whether the employee rank is clerk, and if it is, if that is the case, what we're going to do, we're going to set the emp status, or we're going to update emp status by concatenating the previous version, which is either new employee or seasoned employee, depending on when this particular employee was hired. So emp status, comma, and then we're going to add a string that says space is a sales clerk, ends with a semicolon. Else, it must be a manager, right? Because there's only two types of employees in this simple situation. Copy this line, paste it. I'm going to say the sales manager. Okay. The last of the three if then else conditional statements is going to demonstrate. I'm going to have a couple of empty lines so I can bring this up. A nested if then else. Okay, based on those salary cutoffs or salary brackets, if you want to think of it in this way. We'll say if emp salary is under that low salary bracket of 25,000, then in that case we're going to set the emp status, which I believe is still in the clipboard, to be with a low salary, exclamation point. Okay, so if this was a new employee, is a sales clerk with a low salary, makes for more or less a decent English sentence. We're going to copy the assignment line. We're going to say now else if, okay, emp salary is under high salary bracket of 60,000, right? Which means it's between 25 and 60, then we're going to go and paste this assignment. The status is medium salary. Okay, and then finally else high salary. And then make sure to and if and a semicolon. So I'm sure I'm missing a semicolon somewhere, which we'll find out later on. So next, what we want to do is we want to explicitly call this procedure, whose name is COND if then else, generic name demonstrating this particular type of conditional statement. And in parentheses, we'll have a specific date that is before 2021, before 2020 January 31st. So this is going to be a seasoned employee, M, a manager, and let's say 70,000, which is going to be a high salary, right? So now, after I switch to Toad, I could copy paste this entire procedure, including the call, or I can just copy paste the procedure and then run the call statement separately, which I prefer to do because I first concentrate on getting the procedure right. Okay, and then if that is the case, if I'm not missing any semicolons, which I typically do, all right, the procedure gets over here, then I go and clear the editor and copy just the call line, okay, and then concentrate on that. Okay, running the call line should give me seasoned employee is a sales manager with a high salary, as we knew, right? Then running this again would, involve having maybe a clerk was hired a year later at the medium salary of say 30 grand. Okay, so we run this one, we'll get new employee is a seasoned sales clerk with a medium salary. Okay, so for the assignment you would copy paste these sort of simple outputs, single row outputs of procedures such as this one. Okay, the next example we are going for is a conditional case statement, but I'm going to introduce it first with a slide. Okay, so the conditional case statement, which you know from your basic programming class, is called case when in MySQL's sort of version of that programming construct, is used when there are multiple distinct cases for which if then else becomes too cumbersome to work with. Okay, if there are 3, 4, 5 cases. The code in MySQL 34 conditional case, the file I just showed you a second ago, shows how to set up the case statement for 10 or so product groups, displaying the message based on which group is selected. Okay, it also uses the out parameter to return one or more results from the procedure. Okay, in this case, I believe it is returning just one. So there is one input parameter product group, and there is one out parameter called ship time, which is varchar 50. Okay, so I'm not going to key in the entire case statement. I'm just going to start by doing case based on product group that was passed into the procedure. Okay, and then I'm going to code the first case using the when keyword pro baseball gear. Then, okay, if that's the match, then I'm going to use the set shipping time to be something made up 3 to 5 business days. Okay, if the match is basketball gear, 3 to 7, you'll see all the rest of them. And then the case else that you've probably seen before is here just an else for which we set the ship time to not applicable. So case else is typically an error. or maybe a product group that we missed, although in this case that's not going to be true. So that ends it, and then we're going to explicitly call it by using the following construct: call conditional case, open parenthesis, we'll use outdoor gear. So outdoor gear, where are you? Should be within 5 to 10 business days. So outdoor, make sure you spell it right. And then we're going to use the following variable with the @ symbol as time. Okay, so that's where the resulting shipping time is going to be saved and returned to the calling procedure, which is just a run of this call statement, and then we're going to run the select on that @ time variable to get the results displayed. So let's start by first copying the procedure, see if it compiles. Unless we're missing something, it should be fine, and then shows up here in the list, which sometimes you need to refresh. All of these are refreshing automatically today. And then we're going to go and copy the call and the output using select statements. I'm going to highlight that, delete it, call it, and see not applicable, which is not what we were looking for. Outdoor Greer. Okay, there we go. I said make sure to spell it right, and I didn't. Okay, now it comes within 5 to 10 business days. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to the presentation, and this is probably a good place to pause as well.